Her husband, Mason Moore, was a Broadwater County Sheriff's deputy who was shot and killed in the line of duty. She's here to talk about the incident, what happened, what her life is like now, and the foundation named in his honor. Welcome to the Law Enforcement Today radio show. I'm your host. My name's John J. Wiley. In addition to being a radio broadcaster, I'm a retired police sergeant. For the latest news articles and much more, check out our website, letradioshow.com. In the Law Enforcement Today show, we'll be joined by special guests. We'll be talking about their experiences and issues affecting law enforcement officers, first responders, their families, their community, and victims of horrendous crimes. Be sure to like us on Facebook. Our page is Law Enforcement Today Radio Show. Check out the daily articles on our website, letradioshow.com. And while you're there, download our free app. There was social media, and then there was social audio. Now the Breakout app combines the best of both. Best of all, the Breakout app is free with versions for iPhone and Android devices. You can download the app for free at the App Store and Google Play, or you can download for free at www.letbreak.com. Calling us from Montana, on the phone, Jodi Moore. Jodi is a survivor, and her husband, Broadwater County Deputy Sheriff Mason Moore, was murdered, killed in the line of duty May of 2017. She's here to talk about that, their foundation, and so much more. Jodi, thanks so much for being on the show. Very much appreciated.
Thanks for having me.
I say this all the time, the people, that this topic doesn't get easier. Talking with survivors, which is a term that a lot of people don't know. When we say survivors, that usually means spouses, siblings, parents, children of slain officers, those killed in line of duty. So having this conversation is just one that I just am not comfortable with at all. And I don't suspect that you are either. You'll probably be better at it than I will be.
I don't know about that, but we'll try to get through it.
We'll muddle our way through this. Before we get to talking about Mason and you and what kind of person he is, one of the things I became aware of through some law enforcement officers in Montana is that you have a foundation, the Mason Moore Foundation. Tell us a little bit about the foundation, what it is, what you do, and where people get more information.
The Mason Moore Foundation is the foundation that I started about 6 months after my husband was killed, because I wanted to have some way to be able to fight back, not only for him, but also for myself and for our kids, a way that we could give money back to law enforcement and also show them love and support. So our foundation has 3 different missions. One of them is grants, and the money that we raise goes to the grant process. So law enforcement agencies across the state of Montana can apply with us for a grant, and that's where our main fundraising funds go to. We also do love and support events. So we actually have 2 patrol car washes coming up in this summer. And so what we do with those is we wash patrol cars, we wash fire trucks, we wash ambulances. We just try to love on first responders, law enforcement. We also feed them, and then we also have gift bags for them. And it's just a fun day where we just try to say how much we appreciate what they do. And we also get the community involved with that. So it's not just our board members and our volunteers for the foundation. We get the community involved and get it publicized and get it out there. So another thing that we do is we work on communication and education. And part of that is making sure that we try to help in communities with getting the word out there for what law enforcement needs are, and also what first responder needs are in the communities, and also trying to be involved with the funding or lack of funding in those communities and getting that word out there, and also helping with educating our political figures, governor. I've met with the governor. I've met with several different. I've met with Senator Daines and also Senator Tester, and tried to talk to them about the frustrations with law enforcement funding, especially in the rural areas.
Which is where you're at. Broadwater County is a very rural area, isn't it?
It is, but it's only 30 miles outside of Bozeman, so it's actually very it's growing really fast. I think someone said that it was like one of the biggest growing counties in the state.
Gotcha.
So it's growing really fast because it's in between Helena and also 30 miles outside of Bozeman. So a lot of people are moving out this way because of being able to get a decent price for land and for a house.
You guys got a tall task with your foundation. Is there a way that people can make donations or purchase things that raise funds for all that you do?
Yes, our website is masonmoorefoundation.com, and we have lots of items there that can be purchased. And also you can donate by mailing your donation to P.O. Box 1193, Three Forks, Montana 59752. And
that's on the website as well?
Yep, it is. Mason Moore Foundation mailing address, and it's on the website under the donation tab. It directs you to how you can send in your donation.
I'm sure it's much easier to get all the info. Remember the website address, masonmoorefoundation.com, correct?
Right. We also have a Facebook page, and you can donate via Facebook, or you can learn about the foundation via our Facebook page too, or message us.
I'll be honest with you, I'm very impressed. That's a lot to take on, and me being retired law enforcement, I did go through, I hate to say this, many line of duty deaths, murders, usually as a result of violence, a couple from accidents, and one was a very good friend. And I had his widow, his survivor, on the show. Even after all these years, I've known her like 28 years, something like that. And I still find it very difficult to talk to her when the subject comes up because there's a fear factor that I have. Are you encountering that, or have you encountered that with people?
I think so. I mean, I think people don't really know what to say to us. I think they really struggle with how to talk to us and what to say, and really want to try to help us, but then they don't know what to do or what to say. So I'm a pretty open person, so I try to just be very open and out there with my emotions and how I'm feeling and what we're going through. And so I'm a pretty easy person to come up to and talk to.
And so you make it much easier for me because I still find it very, very difficult. And there's a fear that I have, and I've talked about many people, including Diane from Concerns of Police Survivors and other people and other survivors. The fear is that I'm going to say the wrong thing. I'll make things worse. And I've had friends tell me, you can't make it worse. Don't make that a fear that prevents you from talking or reaching out or being friends, because the worst has already happened. What else can you say to make it? You can't make it better and you can't make it worse.
Well, I think people are afraid they're going to get emotional, and then they're going to get me emotional, and they don't want to do that. So they don't want to talk about it.
I might get emotional. I'm going to tell you right now. And if you get emotional, that's okay too. We'll just get emotional on the radio. If we get sloppy, that's fine. It would be unnatural to not become emotional when we talk about these things. Right.
It's been a very difficult and horrible, horrific thing that's happened to us. And so, it's a very difficult thing to talk about, but it's also something that I've been very open about and feel like I need to talk about it, not only for me, but for all of the people that were involved and all of my husband's friends and our friends. I just think it's really important that everybody know where we are and how we're doing and what we're feeling. So I've kind of put that out there.
Before we get into the details of what happened and everything you went through since that evening, that night, one of the things I hear quite often from most survivors, or the loved ones killed in line of duty, is that they really want people to remember their loved one. And not just as a law enforcement officer. What would you like people to know about Mason and remember about him?
That he was just he really was. I mean, I know you hear this a lot probably, but he was just a genuinely good guy. He was funny and goofy, and he just really cared very much and loved his family very much, and was very protective of his family and his friends, and he was really protective of everybody. He was pretty much, I think, born, in my opinion, he was born to be in law enforcement because he never really let his guard down. He was always watching out for other people and always on guard and always being the protector. And he worked super hard. He just was a great guy.
On that note, we're going to take a short break. We are talking with Jodi Moore, her husband, Broadwater County Deputy Sheriff Mason Moore, was killed in the line of duty, murdered in May of 2017. This is a Law Enforcement Today show. We're going to take a short break. We'll be right back. The Breakout app is an audio networking platform and social networking app all in one. Breakout lets users listen in on live conversations or be a part of the conversation. Get it free with versions for iPhone and Android devices. You can download the app for free at the App Store and Google Play. Be sure to follow John J. Wiley, the Law Enforcement Today Radio Show and podcast. Use the profile at LET Radio Show, or you can download the app for free at letbreak.com.
Missed an episode of Law Enforcement Today? You don't have to anymore, because now you can listen to it on Podopolo, the free new app that makes listening anytime, anywhere so easy. Catch up on shows you've missed and chat with John J. Wiley right there too. Download for free on the Apple or Google Play stores. That's Podopolo. And John J. Wiley wants to hear from you inside Podopolo.
Back to our conversation with Jodi Moore, calling us from the great state of Montana. We are talking about, and there's no easy way to say this, the line of duty death, the murder of her husband, Deputy Mason Moore. That happened in May, I think it's May 16th of 2017. Is that correct?
Yes.
And before he was in Montana, or before you all were in Montana, he was in law enforcement in the state of South Carolina, wasn't he?
Yes, that's correct.
How long did he be in law enforcement prior to the night he was killed?
Overall, it was 18 years.
So he was not a rookie. This is a man who knew what he was doing.
Yes.
And he was an experienced law enforcement officer and very capable. And one of the things that you don't have to comment on this, but I just tell right now from my own experience and people I've known that have been in law enforcement a very, very long time, no matter how good you are, no matter how well trained you are, you can't train for every possible scenario. And people, lesser people that are total lowlifes can wreak undescribable damage and harm, and in this case, death of your husband, and impact you and your family and the whole community in a horrible way.
Yes. Mason and I had actually talked about this scenario, strangely enough, because we talked often about his job because, we were best friends. And so we talked a lot about, his frustrations and things that he saw and things that he couldn't fix and, the things that he went through with work. And so one of the things that we talked about was the increase in the amount of ambushes and killings with law enforcement. And so we had talked about that, and I said, I'm just really worried about that. And we talked about it, and he said, because I knew several times, there was a lot of times he worked by himself for the whole county.
So he was the only person on duty at times for the entire county, Broadwater County. So there was no backup unless it was from a neighboring jurisdiction or department. Right.
And so we had talked about that scenario, and I just had expressed my worry about it. And he said, it's kind of small town sheriffing. That's just the way it is. It's just the way the job is. And he had reassured me that, he was as ready as he could be, and he would do everything he could. And that, but if it's an ambush situation, he said there might not be anything I can do. Right. He had told me that. And so
unfortunately, that was not like just a premonition. That's the absolute truth.
Yes.
I had the same conversations with my first wife, that you walk around with the mindset that the bad stuff can happen. You're aware of it. You don't want to get complacent, but you don't think it's going to happen to you. And you think that if it does happen to you, you'll be prepared and you'll be okay. But we know deep down inside that there's always a possibility.
Yeah, I think he knew more. He knew better than I did that there was always a possibility, and I think he more tried to reassure me. And I, over the years of him being a law enforcement officer, I just learned to kind of pray about it and just let it go.
Gotcha.
And just, believe that he was very capable and he would do everything he could to protect himself. And so, over the years, that was one of the things that we discussed and talked about, and I just feel like he did everything he could do. He was always practicing shooting. He was a really good shot with both a pistol and even better with his rifle. And he even did competitions with shooting back in South Carolina just so he would be prepared. And
Right.
and when he would be in high stress situations where, he could kind of replicate those high stress situations. So he really did try to do everything he could to prepare and to come home to us. And I believe he did everything he could.
One of the things, there is still litigation going on involving one of the suspects. And for those who are just tuning in, I have the philosophy, I have the mindset, and that I will not name people who are murderers, whether mass murderers, serial killers, rapists. I will not give them any publicity whatsoever. But as a result of one of the people still facing litigation about this in the courts in Montana, it makes it so that you really can't talk about too much specifics. Am I correct?
Yes, that's correct.
All right. So I'm not going to ask you. I'm just going to paraphrase real quick, and then we'll get back to the conversation. On the night that your husband was murdered, he was following a vehicle for whatever reason. About 3 o'clock in the morning, he stopped the car, and the two occupants were armed, and they wound up shooting and killing him. The rest of the details, I'm going to leave alone for the litigation part. In the future, Jodi, if you do want to talk about that part of it, it's totally up to you. You can be a guest on the show again and talk about it. If you don't, that's cool too. That's an area where I never know how to tread.
Yeah, well, most of there's been information out in the news and in the newspaper, so I can talk about that part.
Okay.
Basically, what happened is that my husband was on his way home from work, and he was at the end of his shift, and he was within sight of our house when a car sped past him. And he called in the license plate information and did everything he was supposed to do and followed the car and tried to get them to pull over. And they continued to not pull over. And so he continued following them and did everything he was supposed to do. And they got to kind of an area in the road where my understanding is they shot through their back window and shot my husband, and his car was unable to be driven to be able to be controlled, and it veered off to the left-hand side of the road. And then they turned back around and shot him some more, pulled up beside the car and shot him some more.
So that was calculated. It was an assassination, an execution. They could have, once he was shot the first time and lost control of the patrol vehicle, they could have easily just kept on going about their way, but no, they came back.
Right.
And that was a deliberate plan on their part. And from what I understand, and this is where it's touchy, and I'll just say this. I read somewhere that the state is not seeking capital punishment for at least one of them.
Well, the son that was the one that allegedly shot my husband was killed in the gunfight that
you
happened.
Won't see me shedding a tear over that one.
Right.
I'll be honest with you. I'm glad they did that. I'm sorry that the other officers had to go through that. I'm sorry that you had experienced the loss you did, but when something that horrific happens and one of the suspects is shot and killed by police in a gunfight, I cry no tears for them. Yeah,
I'm very grateful that nobody else was hurt from this experience, and that the officers did what they had to do to help prevent anybody else from getting hurt by these guys. So the dad is the one that's in prison right now, or actually he is in a mental health facility and awaiting trial. And it's been going on obviously for 2 years now. There's just a lot going on with it, but that's probably all I should say at this point. But
I think that's a great idea.
At some point down the road, I would love to be able to talk about it.
And I want people to understand this. It's not that I'll speak for Jodi. I'll speak for people that I know have been in this situation, and from being a law enforcement officer where you have these open, active trial still going on. You are not able to talk about it because it so easily can jeopardize the outcome of the trial. And so you have district attorneys, you have investigators, all who work hard on this. And they're saying, please don't say something that's going to put our trial at risk. And that's the reason why Jodi is being quiet about it. And that's the reason why I'm not going to pursue a certain line of questioning. But when we return, we're going to talk about how she's notified, what happened, and where she's at today. This is Law Enforcement Today's show. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Are you wondering where you can find more great podcasts? Head to letradioshow.com, click Be Heard, and discover other fantastic podcasts like this one. Also available on our free app, all at letradioshow.com.
There's only one official Facebook page. What you do a search on Facebook for Law Enforcement Today radio show. Click like and follow. There you'll find updates about upcoming episodes of the radio show. You can contact me. We also find unique, one-of-a-kind editorials and news articles. That is our Facebook page, Law Enforcement Today radio show. Be sure to click like and follow. We'll see you there. Return our conversation with Jodi Moore calling us from Montana. Jodi's husband, Broadwater County Deputy Sheriff Mason Moore, was murdered in the line of duty May 16th of 2017. There's still open litigation. One of the suspects involved is still awaiting trial and court proceedings and rulings and all that stuff, so we're leaving that alone. Jodi, I really appreciate you coming on to talk about this very, very difficult subject. But these are things that people don't hear about. And quite often, the news media doesn't tell people or even give people like you a platform to tell their stories. So I applaud you for doing that. The night or the early morning that Mason was killed, how were you notified?
Well, it was probably, I can't remember exactly what time it was in the morning, but maybe 5 or 6 in the morning. It might have been earlier, but my doorbell rang and I was asleep. And so I wasn't very awake or paying, not thinking very clearly. And so I hopped up and went to the door to open the door because I was thinking maybe Mason had forgotten his keys. And for some reason, was at the front door, which, doesn't really make sense. But anyway, so I opened the door and the sheriff was standing there and several other people. And I knew right away, what had happened, or I knew that it was not good.
Right.
And I initially thought, maybe he's just hurt. Actually, what I did first is I looked through the window and I saw a bunch of boots. And I saw a bunch of boots just like my husband wore. And so I think I initially hoped that he was just hurt, but I knew that there was something wrong. And so then when I opened the door and the sheriff was there, I knew he wasn't just hurt. I knew it was bad. And so I closed the door back, I shut the door back, and I said, just give me a minute. And I shut the door because I had my pajamas on. And so I walked back to my room and put my robe on and then came back and opened the door up and let everybody in. And we walked to the den and we all sat down and they told me what happened. And I think I asked a couple of questions, and I remember Mason's sergeant was just, I couldn't really focus a lot. I was having a hard time focusing, and I was very, very angry. That was my very first emotion, was I was livid, and I just wanted to hit somebody or hit something. And there was a lady that was patting me on the back. She was one of the chaplains, and I just, sweetest lady ever, and I wanted to hit her. So I just was very angry, and I didn't want anybody to touch me, and I just was, just very angry. And so one of Mason's sergeants, who was good friends with Mason, was just talking the whole time. I mean, he was just talking. He kept talking. And so I tried to focus on his voice and just on not necessarily hearing what he was saying, but I just tried to focus on his voice so that I could try to, remain upright and not lose it. So that's really, really kind of what happened. And then several things happened after that, but the main thing was a couple of hours later, I had to wake up my kids.
How old were they?
They were, I'm trying to think, I have twin boys, so they were 14, and my daughter was 7.
First of all, I can't imagine being in your shoes. I have nothing that I can really use as a base of understanding. And you weren't a rookie law enforcement wife. You knew when you opened the door and you saw the sheriff and the chaplain and someone else there that it was really, really bad. And I understand about being angry and wanting people to leave you alone. I look, when I'm very, very fearful or sad, one of the first things I do is I get very angry. But I can't imagine how you tell your kids. What do you do? There's no rule book. There's no book in law enforcement, nothing in the academy that prepares you for this.
No, I just think in some way, in some ways your brain is able to function and in some ways it's not. And I just think that sometimes I almost do better when I'm in a high stress environment. It's like I feel that I'm able to sometimes, figure out a way to think things through. And so that day I went up to their rooms and I put them all in the same room together and I just told them what had happened. And I immediately started telling them that, just because he's not here anymore doesn't mean, just because we can't see him anymore doesn't mean he's not here.
Right.
And it's just like he's in another room. You can still talk to him. I just tried immediately to try to comfort them and to try to start off on the right foot with how they needed to think about this. And immediately I took that anger that I was feeling, and now you said you didn't want to talk about the people that did this horrible and horrific thing. I immediately took that anger and I said the same thing, and I said that this needs to be about Mason. The story needs to be about Mason.
Right.
We need to focus on Mason and what he did for his community and what kind of person he was. And so I did interviews and I talked to them. I did an interview at the fire station where he volunteered. And I just tried to make the story about Mason, and I didn't want any of that story to be about those jerks.
Exactly. And that's what happens. The news always focuses on them, the poor me, the why. They try to explain things away. And there never seems to be enough attention focused on the survivors, on the family members afterwards and what they go through and the tremendous loss. And I'll be honest with you, I can't even find the right words to come up with to describe what you must have gone through. And then to have the whole overwhelming experience of the line of duty funeral and the total invasion of privacy that everybody is there, press, everyone.
Honestly, in some strange way, that really helped me. It was an invasion of privacy, and I usually am, it was difficult in some ways, but it really helped me to be able to see how many people came out and how many people supported law enforcement, and to see all the law enforcement come out. Mason had friends that drove all the way from South Carolina to come out here just to be able to be in the procession. So it's just, it's really hard to be sad and to be, it's really hard to be sad when you see all that and you see the outpouring of love and support. And, it just really fueled my fire to want to continue to fight for law enforcement and to continue to do whatever I can to try to help them make it home to their families. Was
there a time that all the attention just vanished?
No, no, not really. All the attention has slowed down, but I think that it hasn't bothered me that it slowed down because I certainly know that I could reach out to several of the contacts that I've made and say, hey, I think this is a story that needs to be told, and can I tell it? And they usually jump out on board. And so I think things work out for however they're supposed to. And so I believe that things are just being put in place, and people are being put into my life, and people are being supportive and helping with the foundation and also helping with their family at the right time. If that makes any sense.
Absolutely.
I just really feel like, when one, you hear a lot of times that people just stop checking on you and that sort of thing. And from what I've experienced was you might have one friend that stops checking on you, but then another friend tag teams, and comes in, and then that other friend will then come back and check on you. It's like they never stop. They just sometimes tag team and make sure you're okay.
I'm glad to hear that they didn't lose touch. We were talking with Jodi Moore, her husband, Broadwater County, Montana Sheriff's Deputy Mason Moore was shot and killed in line of duty May 16th of 2017. When we return, we're going to talk about what it's taken to get to where she's at now and what you can do to help the families of law enforcement officers and law enforcement officers. This is Law Enforcement Today show. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. This portion of the Law Enforcement Today radio show is brought to you in part by Pet Rescue Life Facebook page. Everyone's welcome at the Pet Rescue Life Facebook page, where you'll find fun, informative, and enjoyable posts daily. Purebred, mixed breeds, rescues, we love them all. Be sure to like the Pet Rescue Life Facebook page. This portion of the Law Enforcement Today radio show is brought to you in part by Pet Rescue Life Facebook page. Everyone's welcome at the Pet Rescue Life Facebook page, where you'll find fun, informative, and enjoyable posts daily. Purebred, mixed breeds, rescues, we love them all. Be sure to like the Pet Rescue Life Facebook page. If you've missed past episodes of the Law Enforcement Today show, never fear. You can listen to them online. Just go to our website, lawenforcementtoday.com, or download our free app, also available on our website. That's lawenforcementtoday.com. I'm John J. Wiley, joined by special guest Jodi Moore, calling us from Montana. For those just tuning in recently, Jodi's husband, Broadwater County, Montana Sheriff's Deputy Mason Moore, was murdered. He was shot and killed in the line of duty May 16th of 2017. Jodi, first of all, thank you so very much for coming on and talking about this. I know none of this is easy because it's horribly difficult for me, so I can only begin to imagine what it's like for you. We talked about how you were notified. We talked a little bit about the attention during the line of duty funeral. And one of the things I think that's very important that doesn't get talked about too much is the effort it takes, what it's taken to get to where you are today. I'm not want to say overcome, because I don't think you can overcome these things. I just think you find a way to accept this horrible hand you've been dealt and find a way to have the best life possible. That's the only way I can describe it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I kind of feel like I'm at that point now where I have to choose. I was talking to a friend of mine about this, and I feel like I have to choose to either live and get better, or choose to kind of be miserable and unhappy and laying in the bed all the time. I'm kind of at that crossroads where I have to continue fighting, and it's hard. It's one of the hardest things I've ever had to do, because I just really won't kind of curl up in a ball and not ever move, but I can't do that. I have 3 kids to raise. And
that's right. How old are the children now?
The boys are 16 and my daughter's 9.
Even with 2 parents, it's a lot of work. So you're absolutely right. One of the things that, as a parent, if something happened to me, I would not want my daughters just overcome with grief and depression and not enjoying their lives. And I certainly wouldn't want my wife to suffer either. I'd want them to find a way to get to a point where they can have as productive and as happy a life as possible. You feel you're not there yet, but you're getting there?
I hope so. I feel like I'm getting there. Mason actually left us letters when he went to the Criminal Justice Academy in South Carolina. He was trained to write letters for his family. So I knew that he had written us letters, and that was one of the first things I did when I found out that he was gone, as I read the letters. And in usual, typical Mason fashion, it was, don't let the evil win. Make sure that you continue, let love win, and don't focus on the hate, focus on the love, don't focus on the details of what happened to me. He said a lot of things like that in his letter, and he told me to enjoy life. So I'm really trying to do that, but it's easier said than done. And so it's a continual fight to try to keep my chin up and keep moving. So, but anyway.
How long ago did he write those letters?
He wrote them about 5 years ago.
Knowing that this was a possibility, and he wrote them and kept them for you in case something happened.
Yeah, he wrote it about 5 years before he was killed. So, yeah. That
blows my mind. I don't think that thought ever crossed my mind of doing that. And I'll be honest with you, I'm impressed that he had the presence of mind to do that all those years beforehand.
Yeah, and it was really, it seemed like everything he wrote in that letter was in response to what happened to him. So it was, and it's a very important letter and something that really not only helps me, but helps our kids because they have letters as well. It just really helps us to be able to, it's just, it's just typical Mason that he's still taking care of us.
Did he hide the letters somewhere that you would only find out after this horrible event happened?
He didn't really hide them. They were in the safe, and I always knew that's where they were. He told me about them. He told me where they were if something ever happened. And so that was the first thing I did. That was the first thing I went to when I found out he was gone.
What little I've read and what you've told me about him, I can't help but be impressed. And I would think that I know I would have liked this guy quite a bit. Yeah. Not just that he was a law enforcement officer, because he seemed to be a well-grounded, well-thought-of, respectable guy.
Exactly. He was a good kid.
And that seems to be such a shortage nowadays. I really don't think it's a shortage that we have these men and women like that. I think what it is that the news media doesn't talk about them. They don't get press. They don't get coverage. It's the people making wild accusations and wild claims and discriminatory claims. They get all the attention. People like Mason, it's like they're ignored.
Right. And I think nationwide that is definitely the case.
So maybe one of the things that people can take from this is not just with law enforcement officers, not just with first responders or military veterans, but if you know a man or woman that's just deep down a good person, maybe say something to them. A simple thank you for being who you are, that it's appreciated.
Right.
And I don't know that there's another thing we can do, because none of us seems to have the capability of doing something grand and large to say, remember this. But when people say, remember, the survivors say, remember my slain officer because he was this kind of guy or she was this type of person. That's a statement right there. Mason Moore was a great guy.
He was.
He was a husband. Absolutely. He was a father. He was someone's son. He was well thought of in the community. And
Absolutely.
It's just a tragedy that these things happen, and there seems to be no let up. Have you found support from other local people and or groups that have a basis of understanding when it comes to surviving line of duty deaths?
I've had some support from the COPS organization, the Montana COPS organization. They've helped, and then also just the law enforcement community in general, and Mason's fire community because he volunteered with the fire department as well. They've all been really supportive, as well as our church has been really supportive. And then, of course, we're all going to therapy, which I think is really important. So we have received a tremendous amount of support, and we're really grateful for that.
Before we go into details about the Mason Moore Foundation, for the benefit of those who are going to go through this in the future, and you know it's going to happen, what's the one thing you would like to tell people they should do when this happens to someone in their community?
Just check on them. Make sure that they know that they're loved. Make sure that there are people there that support them, and continue to check on them ongoing, and take their kids and go do fun things with their kids. Just be there and support them.
That's no small task, but it's the simple things that make a difference. And I hear from so many people, just don't be a ghost. Don't just stop communicating. Show up. Go to play cards. Watch football. Whatever it might be. You don't have to talk about the serious stuff. Just show up and be a friend and a support. You've done something very impressive. You started your own foundation, the Mason Moore Foundation. Briefly, what do you do and where people get more information and how they can donate and help?
So MasonMooreFoundation.com, there is a donate tab, and that tells you how you can donate. There's also information about the foundation, and then we also have merchandise that people can purchase to help with the foundation. So primarily all of our fundraising goes to grants to help law enforcement agencies across the state of Montana. And then we also do love and support events, and we also help with communication and education between the law enforcement community and people, but also the law enforcement community and politicians or governors, all those sorts of people that trying to get funding, better funding for law enforcement. And so far, the community of Montana, just everybody here has really stepped up to help donate and to help with the needs for law enforcement. But I also feel like my job is to make sure that the people that we elect and that we put into office understand the needs and understand, what those guys, men and women, go through.
And get more details on your website, which is MasonMooreFoundation.com, correct?
Correct.
Jodi Moore, thanks so very much for coming on the Law Enforcement Today show, sharing your story, and being so open and honest about it. It's very, very much appreciated.
Thank you for having me.
The Law Enforcement Today radio show is a nationally syndicated radio show broadcast on numerous stations once a week and growing. If you enjoyed the podcast version of the show, please do me a big favor. Tell a friend. I'll be back in just a couple days with a brand new episode of the Law Enforcement Today radio show and podcast. Until then, this is John J. Wiley. See ya.